Well, it's a quiet night here at the Polak home, and I'm in pajamas early, so let's talk about music. The last two videos were my response to the Rolling Stones list of the 250 greatest guitar players, and then the next video was about favorite albums. There were dozens of obvious omissions that everyone jumped right on with the Rolling Stone list. Joe Pass, George Benson, Segovia, many others. But I'm interested in hearing about a guitarist that you might include on a list of 250 that might be unique to your list. For me, two such guitar players came right to mind. Sarah Lipstate, who goes under the name Noveller, is pretty unique. Sound textures drive her compositions, which seem to come up from the floor. Lots of guitar players use pedals, but not quite to the extent that she does. In recent years, she's been in Iggy Pop's band. Her compositions are really excellent, and that, for me, is what it's all about. I remember the late Michael Hedges once said that the techniques he used were there because they served the compositions he was writing, not the other way around. That really hit home to me in the mid-90s, I'd say 94, when I went to a concert and the opening act was a guitar soloist, and he came out with a blaze of two-hand tapping, slapping, and hammering, the entire bit executed to absolute perfection. A huge round of applause for the first tune that he did. This was really going to be great, I thought. The second tune was pretty much the same as the first tune, and by the end of the third tune, the people in the audience just wanted this dude to get off the stage. They had seen everything in the first 2 minutes. My favorite guitar players have always been composers first and guitar players second, and I think Noveller is such a performer. Here's an interesting pick. April Lawton, who played with the group Ramatan in the early 70s. From a handful of recordings that are out there, and the stories of those that heard her play, there is no doubt that she was on par with Hendrix, Beck, Holdsworth, and virtuosos that entered the scene well after she stopped performing. She never did interviews and made sure she never got too famous. April died at the age of 58 in 2006, and it had been a mystery all these years as to why she was so intent on avoiding fame. In recent years, we found out why, and it's very interesting. Look up April Lawton in Wikipedia, and you'll see the rest of the story. Things were very different in the early 70s than they are now. And if she had become a big star back then, we can only guess what may have happened to her. So, which guitar players would be unique to your 250 list? Please leave a comment below. Well, let's get back to the list of albums. I started with 20, but only had time to talk about the first 5, so we'll pick it up at number 6. Nina Simone, like Nat King Cole, was a wonderful pianist, and this was best heard in her earlier small ensemble recordings. She considered herself to be as much of a folk singer as a blues, gospel, or jazz singer. Live at Town Hall was her third LP release and her earliest live record. Number 7, the David Grisman Quintet, 1976, with Tony Rice, Darrell Anger, Todd Phillips. This album changed everything for bluegrass players because it showcased instruments thought to be suitable for straight country and bluegrass, and it sent an all-acoustic ensemble into folk fusion, jamming, swing, and European folk music. This is one of those must-own recordings, and it never gets old. Number 8, I picked Stravinsky Conducts Petrushka and The Rite of Spring. Almost all of the performances of these works that I've heard put varying amounts of interpretive emphasis on dissonance and complexity of rhythm. Stravinsky, however, conducts his own work with a flowing, natural, and rather classical approach, letting the music do the work for itself. There are many recordings of Stravinsky, but for me, this is the one. Number 9, the Bothy Band. Young Irish musicians in the 1970s were really bringing it, and I could have easily put the first 2 albums by Planxty or early albums by Dee Danan or Clannad, but the Bothy Band generated so much energy and excitement that they still are the prototype for all of the supergroups that followed them. Okay, well, we're going way over 5 minutes, and I do like to keep these around 5 minutes. I did want to acknowledge some of the comments. Night Theme brought up Steely Dan, and she picked Countdown to Ecstasy. I like the first one, Can't Buy a Thrill. All of their early albums are very melodic, their later albums funky. Somebody else was bringing up a lot of late 60s stuff, and there is a treasure trove of albums from that period. 2 that I might put on: The United States of America. That was their one-off record. No guitars, but you wouldn't know that on a brief encounter with the album. And another one is It's a Beautiful Day, the one with White Bird, and yeah, that was a great album. Other albums I might put in, I put this on Facebook. These are my friends, Pete and Mark Kennedy. All their albums are great. They have a new one, Headwinds. Got the t-shirt. And this, my favorite one they did 20 years ago, which is Stand. This album is just great from start to finish, and it's kind of unique in the music world to have that kind of positive vibe, oddly enough. So that's all I'm going to do for today, and leave me your notes below. Have yourself a wonderful evening and a wonderful holiday season, and I'll chat with you soon.